So don't be afraid to substitute or experiment with recipes. Don't be afraid to look at a recipe and say, I really love this kind of recipe, so how do I make it to be keto or low carb? Hi, this is Anita from the Reluctant Low Carb Life. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about cooking. Because if you're going to be on a keto or low carb diet, one of the things that you need to be able to know how to do is basic cooking. In fact, you need to know some basic cooking skills. I recently heard something that like 50% of Americans cannot cook. And I'm not talking 50%, that's including the children can't cook. I'm talking about 50% of adults that they cannot or they're not really able to do some basic cooking. And I believe the statistic is very similar to that in Europe. We somewhere in the 1970s, 80s, we started losing our ability to cook. We started having a lot of prepackaged foods. It became easier. We opened TV dinners. We stopped growing gardens. We just started going to the supermarket, and then we started shopping for fresh food as much as we did prepackaged food. So we really forgot how to cook or what we need to do to cook. So I've kind of listed out a couple basic things that I think you need to do to really be able to know how to cook. One of them is to chop vegetables. You can chop vegetables slowly or you can chop them quickly. They don't really take that much time to chop. If you're going to be on a keto, a low carb diet, you're going to have to be able to chop vegetables. It's just the way the diet goes. So, we recommend you have 2 cutting boards. You have one cutting board where you cut the vegetables, another cutting board you cut meat on, and then you don't have to worry about the contamination between raw meat and vegetables. And, we actually, in our home, we have a colored board that's red that we use for meat, for all raw meat. And then we have basically a white board we use for vegetables. Have a good knife. I actually am a great fan of the Chinese cleaver knife because it's heavy and it's great, but there's lots of great knives you can get. If you live near Costco, Costco's always had some great sets of knives. Get yourself and invest in some very good knives because it will make a difference with your cutting. Make cooking fresh a priority. Learn to saute vegetables. Like I love to saute vegetables in oil or butter. If I'm going to make soup, I'll always saute the vegetables beforehand. Brown any meat, learn how you can brown meat. I love to brown meat with onions and garlic in it and, some salt and pepper, just add some flavor to it all. And, cook the vegetables that take the longest, first. And this is something which really the Asians or the Chinese understand is they'll always cook the vegetables that are going to take the longest first. And then they will cook the vegetables that are softer last. Mix in spices and sauces, that you would. And then if you're going to have nuts, it's really best that you don't cook the nuts too much. If you want to have some crunch on them, that you cook them last. Learn how to basically be able to substitute some things like instead of white rice, use cauliflower rice. Learn about different oils. You can have olive oil, avocado oil, instead of using vegetable oil, there's all these different types of great nut oils that you could use. Substitute sugar. We love monk fruit sugar. We think monk fruit sugar is a great sugar to be able to use. You can use it as a great substitute to help you with your cooking. And, learn to use almond flour instead of using regular flour. So don't be afraid to substitute or experiment with recipes. Don't be afraid to look at a recipe and say, I really love this kind of recipe, so how do I make it to be keto or low carb? What do I need to do to make it so it'll become a keto or low carb recipe? And a lot of times if you do some basic things like you substitute almond flour, you use a different oil, that it can be used on keto and low carb. If it calls for a little bit of sugar, use the monk fruit sugar. Then you can use a lot of your favorite recipes can become keto or low carb recipes. Instead of rice, use cauliflower rice. Those are all things that you could do to be able to substitute and still be able to cook and enjoy the foods that you like. If you're going to be on a keto and low carb diet, you are going to have to know how to cook. Really, the prepackaged foods do not work. You really need to be able to cook fresh. And cooking fresh is far more healthy for you than if you eat the prepackaged or the other foods. It is just will be a much healthier diet for you. This is Anita from the Reluctant Low Carb Life. Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate you. We hope that you'll join us on this journey. We are not perfect on this journey. I can tell you I am not perfect on it, but this is all about us learning and growing together and hopefully becoming healthier in the process as we learn and grow together. We'd like to thank our production crew, Rico, for helping to put this together. We'd like to thank you, our listener, for being part of our community. Thank you so much for listening.